And our first matter of business is, do we have any new people to introduce themselves or who would like to know more about us? Hello, I see some people waving. Oh, hi, Stephanie. Malachi, have we met before? Have you been on before?
I have been on once before. This is my partner, though.
Hi, I'm Jenny.
Oh,
Nice to
hi,
meet you.
Jenny.
Hi.
Hi, Jenny. Welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, my name's, oh my gosh, I still have my kiddo's name on here. 1 second. Let's mix it up. All right, my name's CJ. I'm co-chairing, so I'm taking over. We have another co-chair, Greg, who's out tonight, like we just said. Welcome. Then I guess our second order of business would be approval of the March minutes.
So
Any corrections? I sent them out, but they were a long time ago. So
Hard, let me look back.
you want me? I can send them out again.
I didn't notice anything that needed correcting.
I read them and they seemed fine.
Okay.
So I'd move that we accept the March minutes as distributed.
I second.
All right. And then I can't remember, I say motion.
Then you say all in favor,
Oh, all in favor of?
or you ask for any discussion, but there won't be any discussion.
Oh yeah, anyone, I was looking through the Southeast Uplift rules about how exactly to do that, but yeah, any discussion wanted about these March minutes?
Just one thing to note that as of this month now, Jules and Ross are voting members of the board. So you get to vote now. Just a reminder, or
Oh, excellent.
otherwise about the minutes specifically, not really.
All right, well then for everyone who has the power to vote, all in favor?
Aye.
All right.
All right, I believe it passes. Wonderful.
You need to ask for any opposed and then any abstention.
Any opposed? Any abstain?
I will abstain. I have not seen them, so I'll request to be on the distribution list for that.
Right.
Thank you, Ross.
I usually send it. Oh, am I muted? No.
No, I can hear you.
Okay, good. I usually send it to the board at ntna.org. So hopefully everybody's on there. So then I just blast it to everybody.
Yeah, Ross, I can check to make sure that you're on that forwarder.
Perfect.
Thought you were. I thought I added you, but my memory may have failed me.
Okay. Moving right along. We're making good time. The treasurer's report. How's our money situation?
Our money situation's looking good. We have, with the addition of the $500 check from Southeast Uplift for communication, Jules, we have $3,089.98. Okay. I think
And
we have till the end of the year to spend that.
And just a point of order, the agenda, I know there was an agenda sent out via email.
Right.
Is it possible to either share it on the screen or make sure everybody's got a copy of it as we go through it?
Sure, I will put what I have in the chat if that works for people.
Because we do need to vote on that.
Yeah, I have it on my screen, so I can.
Yeah, normally
Sure.
we vote to approve the agenda as well. Yeah, I see it in the chat.
see.
That's good. Or on the screen now too, yeah.
You got options.
I'll motion to approve the agenda as is.
Second.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. And let me pull up so I can see all not in favor. And then anyone abstaining. All right, looks good.
Take your screen off, Keith.
Yep.
Is everybody?
Bossy,
See
bossy.
it in the, you can see it in the chat.
Yes, thank you very much. All right, agenda approved, then treasurer's report. We have that money. You said to the end of the year we have to spend it?
The communication funds.
Yes, we do.
Okay. Okay, good. The 500.
Mhm.
Gotcha. Well, we'll circle back to that in a second. I can't remember. Was anyone able to make it to the Southeast Uplift this last time? Stephanie, I remember you. I don't think you were able to make this one. Oh, I can't hear
This
you.
is here.
I did get to, I think most of it. No, I went up until the training part and then I just kind of fell apart. I had oral surgery sort of right before that, so I was not in the best of shape, but I can report a few things. One is there's yet another new staff member, Alexander. So there's been just a tremendous amount of turnover. At least one of the new people, Machu, was on the board, so knows something about that. And they're already talking about the getting ready to do this, the search for the new executive director. So Leah Fisher is interim, but they're starting to talk about a timeline across the summer. So maybe somebody could be chosen by the fall. I don't know for sure if Leah will apply, but probably people will encourage her to, but I think they will go through rigorous, appropriate practice around all that protocols. They've gone through 2 sessions of this board training around bias and diversity, equity, inclusion, access work, and there's a 3rd one yet to come. So I've been pretty serious about that. But the thing I think I would say keep your eyes out about is that we had as a guest Joanne Hardesty, and she was repeated some of the things at that other meeting that CJ went to and I went to too. But she is really trying to understand this part of her job responsibility with the Office of Community and Civic Life, and has been studying a lot. And through another listserv that I'm on that has some board members and some other community members, I learned that there's a recent report, a kind of a newish assessment report that was done, and they're not releasing it to the public. And it's something that's going to inform a lot of her decisions. And she is expecting sometime in maybe like 30 to 60 days. And there could be some restructuring. We really don't know. But she did tell Southeast Uplift that as far as her impression and understanding of these regional coordinating groups, that we were the sort of poster child, that we were doing the most to try and reach out to community groups. And one of the more recent, two places you see that is in the board recruitment, and that will be coming up. So, and I'm on the board development committee. So if you can think of somebody from our neighborhood or really anywhere in Southeast Uplift, as long as they have a neighborhood association that might bring some diverse perspectives to the board from business or from education or nonprofits or youth, anything that you just can imagine that this would be a nice place for them to plug in their civic duty, just pass a name on to me and then we'll tell them where the application stuff is up on the website. And that'll be, I think in June is when the applications will be due. So that's one place where they're really trying to work on outreach. And the other is through the way they're making the grants. So we got our $500 for communication like all the neighborhood groups did, but it was less than we've gotten in some other years because they peeled off a portion to also give out through competitive grants. That list of who got those grants is, I think I saw it in the newsletter and I just sent it to Keith, but we'll get it around to everybody. A number of the recipients are also neighborhood associations who needed or wanted more money. I believe that everybody who applied for money, neighborhood associations and community groups, did get funded because that was what Leah hoped. We didn't want to pit neighborhood groups against other organizations. But just by structuring it that way, it's a kind of a policy choice to be sure to include other groups. So that's a little bit about Southeast Uplift, but I think emphasizing the director search And whatever Joanne Hardesty's going to do in terms of what does that mean for contracts, they're year to year right now. She doesn't want to go to 3 years or 5 years because the city budget is under so much pressure and all the police stuff, et cetera. So stay tuned. And if there's a little hot bit of information, we'll pass it on to our great newsletter editor.
Lars said he went to the meeting too, and he took notes and he emailed them to Lisa and I believe to everybody else just during as the meeting was starting. So just if you want to check out his notes too.
Was that for land use and transportation or for the regular
Said he
board
went
meeting?
to both.
That was the land use and transportation meeting last night.
Yeah,
I don't think
that's
he
what I
went to
thought.
the Southeast Uplift meeting.
I didn't see anybody else
Yeah.
there.
But I'm glad he sent it to everybody, so you guys can read it and I don't have to report.
Well, honestly, most of the work that I end up doing, besides going to the monthly meeting, is on the committees and keeping those committees strong and functioning. And that's going to be good for an incoming directors like the finance committee. This really knows where the money is, what's workable, what's a contract. It's pretty useful. And the same with this board development. That's about it.
Thank you, Stephanie. Do you know when the next Southeast Uplift meeting is?
And yes, and you're certainly, anybody's welcome to come. It's May 3rd. It's always the first Monday, except sometimes they adjust it around 4th of July.
Oh, sure. Monday the 3rd. And they're
Yeah.
at evening time?
They're at 7.
Perfect.
Yep.
Thank you. And then moving on to the communications update.
I wanted to just say real quickly that if there's any information for the Southeast Examiner, if you guys have any input, please send that to me tonight or tomorrow morning because I need to get that over. And I just wanted to say that.
Thank you.
I don't have a whole lot.
Yeah. I just wanted to say to Kim that generally there's a little recap of our meeting that goes on and is written up for the paper. So somebody writes that up and then it's submitted to the paper so we can just see, hey, we talked about this or whatever.
Usually what I'm referring to too is if we're going to have any guest speakers. Yeah, I can say we met tonight and we talked about, things on the agenda and to say about Southeast Uplift, whatever. But also for the next month, if we have any planned events for our board meeting, and I think we all talked about just calling it a neighborhood meeting in the Southeast Examiner. Anyway, if you guys do have any input, please send that to me because I want to get that out tomorrow. So.
Do we know if we have a guest coming next month?
Not that I know of. That's why
I don't
I'm
think
asking.
so.
I'll since the topic came up, I will just mention I'm in a kind of a trade association for Airbnb hosts, and we have wanted to give presentations to neighborhood associations, not a full-length presentation, but maybe 15 minutes about short-term rentals in neighborhoods. That is something that, of course, neighborhood associations get notified if somebody wants to, do a short-term rental in their ADU or whatever. And so we could maybe take 15 or 20 minutes for a very short presentation on that. I'll have the guy who's the president of the hosts group join us, and then he could answer questions and just tell you about something about Portland City rules about short-term rentals, and what to expect, and maybe some of you are short-term rental hosts yourself, but it would just be very general background and an opportunity to ask questions. So you can put that tentatively on the agenda. And I'll send Kim
So
something
can you
more.
just send me information on it?
I'll send you like 2 sentences that you can incorporate into your, okay.
That's fine. That's fine. Thank you.
Okay.
Great. And just email the board email a little bit about that, and I'll make sure it's in the agenda, and Jules and I will make sure it's spread out to the people.
I have in my notes back a little, or maybe I'm remembering this and it put in my notes. Did Ross mention he wanted to do a presentation? on the subduction zone, earthquakes. I don't know if I'm not
Ross?
putting, like, I'm not putting you on the spot, Ross, but that was just something I remembered.
You're remembering correctly. I have a presentation that's in my files that talks about the Cascadia subduction zone and earthquake hazards and impacts to the region. That was a topic that was brought up briefly in the last meeting. Happy to just talk about that for 5 minutes in preface of Linda's presentation, if that is tonight, if that is something that would be approved.
How long is your presentation generally for a group like this? Like half an hour or what?
You can get into a lot of different detail, but I think 5 or so minutes, maybe 10 minutes would be about the right level.
Okay.
Do you think we could do that? Like, do you want to do a larger one at a different time? Like, we could do it in June or something? I'm just tossing that out there. Not that we don't have anybody. I don't know if we have anybody for June, but it's just a thought.
I think for the audience, a shorter version would be about right.
I'm wondering if we ever kind of followed up with the Portland Clean Air folks to be able to get closer to organizing a ride. Or
I'm the kind of point of contact for them, I suppose. And all we've done really at this point, they wanted to know how many people were on our distribution lists so that they can then include that in their own distribution list. So we have not really done anything more with that, except that we're still in contact with them. I know that there were some options about us maybe even investing in some air monitoring equipment, et cetera. Excuse me. But I really don't have any more specifics about it. So I will try to see if there's what's the next step.
Yeah, because that would be great. I'd love to get something activated, or at least a plan kind of put together, because I feel like that's a great kind of like community event and a good story for us to tell, as well as, you know, something to do. That would be fun.
So I'll put that on follow up for me to follow up with the Cascadia Clean Air Group.
Well, I can put it on Linda. Do you think that 5 minutes in the beginning, just a quick description of what the Cascadia subduction zone is, would fit well with your emergency preparedness presentation?
Yes, I do. I have just a few slides that probably won't take more than 20-25 minutes. So that would be just fine.
Great. Do we have to go through a whole agenda amendment?
No.
Okay.
This is informal. It's fine.
We all agree. All right, then come 7 o'clock then, Ross, do you have all your slides and everything prepared that you'd need? Excellent, then we can learn a little bit about that.
Let me just bring up one topic that has been mentioned. There was some email traffic about it, about making sure that we don't call these board meetings anymore. I think we can just do that unofficially. The bylaws say that we shall have at least one quote unquote general membership meeting a year. And in the past, that was when we did the election for board members, and we made sure we tried to get as many just neighbors to show up. But particularly now that we're doing things on Zoom, we're trying to have some kind of a program each time. I think every meeting is a general membership meeting for the neighbors. And like for the next time you put an agenda together, assuming we have some kind of program, the pure board stuff about approving the minutes and all that kind of thing, maybe it could be put after whatever general interest presentations are given, so that people don't have to sit through that if they don't want to. But I think that basically you and Greg as chairpersons can just make that happen.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. I'd like more participation, like low barrier access to our meetings. So that's a great idea. Okay, regarding, was there anything else about communications? Jules, did you want to say anything about the newsletter?
No, I don't think so. I think actually the open rates and was really great. We had like a kind of a 60% open rate, so that was pretty great.
That's great.
Looks like we're having some incremental signups. Need to do kind of a better concerted effort to push people to sign up. So I think collecting emails is great, but again, really kind of sharing the sign up page a little bit more individually, I think would be ideal to just spread the word a little bit. And unfortunately, the bike shop did move out on Thursday, which I was really bummed about. But we have I've talked to Ruthie a little bit, and people are continuing to make some noise for them. So I think that's good. I'm just really disappointed in the property management group up there not being able to keep, good businesses in that place. So, but yeah, but overall doing good. People are reading it and clicking, and we're seeing some steady improvements. So just need to really build out that list a little bit more.
Wonderful. And I've got us a YouTube channel. I still want to go through and fancy it up a little bit, but we've got our recordings of previous meetings up there, and then Keith will send me this one, and I'll get it in there too. Usually a day or two after our meeting. And then I'll make sure that when I feel it's right, I will share the link with everybody, and it'll be fine. Do we have anything for land use, transportation?
I think Kim said that she posted Lars's notes from it, and that unless Lisa wanted to add.
Did you guys get Lars did a really good job. I was not able to attend last night, so he attended and took some extensive notes. So I don't know, it might take me longer to
Well, we just need
read
to know
through
what they are. We can read them ourselves, but
okay. Yeah, it was basically it was about the transitioning from homelessness to temporary housing and what's been done and some of the things that they're attempting to do, establishing locations and codes for open shelters, tiny homes, and other forms of alternative housing. The city is purchasing parking lots and converting them to multiple dwelling communities, and amending codes to provide for sanitation and water in these locations. So sounds like some positive stuff. Did touch on the mess on 33rd, which I think we all know is an eyesore. But they are saying that it hasn't been cleaned up by the city. One, with COVID, they've been advised not to interact with that whole thing. And of course, they're not going to force people to move.
Are these notes posted?
I'm sorry?
Did Kim said that these notes are like available to us to look at or posted someplace?
Yeah. So Lars,
He
yeah,
emailed
Lars,
them to you all.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, they're
yeah. So he sent them to me separately. So he must have done them all to you guys separately too.
They've already come. If you check your email, they're there in your email.
Yeah, I'm cutting and pasting them into the meeting notes right now.
Good.
So
anyway,
they'll be in there.
So it was, but I did appreciate them touching on the 33 issue, because it's kind of been a big thing on Nextdoor recently.
Oh.
And
is that within our North Tabor boundaries, or is that Laurelhurst? What's
33rd? No, that's Marine Drive. That's way, it's just
like very north or something?
Yeah, so do you know where DQ or DMV is?
DQ? You're talking about the Marine Drive and
30,
Yes.
Yeah.
There's a whole thing going on.
It's right across from the National Guard. I used to work down there at Pacific Corps, or at Pacific Power's big hub down there for Portland. And just down the way is National Guard. Across the way from that, it's really bad. And there's lots of RVs down there, and it's pretty
it's really bad.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty eye-opening, to say the least.
Yeah. So it's unfortunate. I don't know if this is just kind of an excuse on their part, because the city has really done nothing. This has been going on for a long time, and it just keeps getting worse. And you know, I appreciate not wanting to be close to people with COVID and everything else, but there is nothing that says they can't try and clean up some of the refuse that is left behind. So I don't know. It's a very touchy subject. It's just hard. It's just a hard situation. So anyway, so yeah, so Lars says they talked about that and some other things. So yeah, so read those notes. He took really good notes.
Some of it would be nice to have that cleaned up, because it seems really sad that, I'm sorry, my dogs are barking, that they're in need to continue to live in that, which if they could take it away and they're still there and they don't displace them, at least that isn't around to be unsafe for the people that are living there.
Well,
you know?
Yeah. And there is no reason why they can't push some dumpsters down there alongside the RVs, or, you know, in outhouses and everything else. It's just, I think the city has really, they're making some really kind of lame excuses as to why they're not doing anything. So those people need help. I mean, they need to have somewhere to put their stuff. They need, you know, it's not like they can just walk to the corner and throw it in the garbage can. So, you know, other than digging ditches and burying it out there, I mean, you know, they have nothing. So the city really needs to step up. It really does. I mean, just saying.
And it's a much longer conversation, but I appreciate that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That's what Laura sent out. But I want to respect now Ross and Linda's. Oh, thank you for this. Some links in the chat now about our presentation, but I want to turn it over to, I suppose, Ross.
Can I just quickly ask, is there a way to keep these links in the minutes, or for us to keep them? We see them, but then they're gone. So how do we refer to them after the meeting's over?
Keith can save them.
I'll toss them. I'll toss them in the meeting minutes.
Yeah.
That also works. When you save the recording, you can also export the chat if you choose to.
Right. Yeah, and there is a this came from a document, which I could just forward that to everyone.
You could just screenshot the chat if you wanted to save it that way.
Also possible.
Does the screenshot though let you access the links?
Yeah, you don't have to. There's easier ways than screenshotting. You can export the whole thing.
Yeah, I just copied and pasted it. That's all good.
Then it would be actual text and give you an access to the links.
All right, Ross, take it away.
Okay. Thanks, Linda, for letting me take up a little bit of your time. But I saw the links in the chat and they look very familiar. So I think I've got some resources in here and some of those overlap. So I think this might be a good introduction. My name's Ross Heiner. I'm a professional engineer, civil engineer, and been in Portland for about 5 years, and came here not knowing much about earthquakes. So much of this information I'll prepare and will share is much of the learning that I've done since moving here and being, educating myself on the seismic hazards in the Pacific Northwest, and also, improving my individual preparedness. And so the agenda, this will be very abbreviated, but quick introduction on what the Cascadia subduction zone is, what some estimates on the impacts to Portland and the region will be due to a Cascadia subduction zone earthquake, and then transition into Linda with some individual and community preparedness links and resources. So basically the mechanics of the subduction zone are that the North American plate is moving out west towards the Pacific Ocean, and the Juan de Fuca plate is moving east towards the North American plate, and they're locked together. And every 300 to 500 years or so, that force that's being developed with those plates colliding gets released, and that's what a subduction zone earthquake is. And so how do we know that we are in a subduction zone? And there's a few different pieces of evidence. One is that these ghost forests, the physical evidence is these ghost forests that exist in different tidal bays along the coast from Northern California up past Washington, where you can actually observe how the North American plate on the coast subsided or was lowered in the last subduction zone earthquake by 3 to 5 feet. And then there's these sand deposits that are a result of the tsunamis that occurred after that lowering, after that earthquake occurred. And so you get these ghost forests where these stumps are sticking up out of the ground, and geologists and scientists have counted the rings on the stumps on the trees to estimate how long they were living before, from the last subduction zone to the previous subduction zone earthquake. There's also written evidence and that written evidence comes from Japan, actually, and the orphan tsunami that is in the written history of coastal towns in Japan, where the tsunami wave came ashore, but in Japan they didn't feel an earthquake. Normally tsunamis are associated with earthquakes. In this case, there was no earthquake that preceded the tsunami, so it's referred to as the orphan tsunami. And so this is a wonderful book that Brian Atwater from University of Washington and researchers put together. It's published by the USGS, so this is a free download at this link. Beautiful diagrams and explanation of the earthquake and of the research they did, and the translation of handwritten journals from town managers across the Japanese coastal towns. So I highly recommend that as a read. And then there's another form of physical evidence that comes from the ocean floor. And this gentleman from Oregon State, Chris Goldfinger, is one of the lead researchers of these underwater landslides that occur during subduction zone earthquakes. And this is how we know more about the frequency of these earthquakes occurring. The stat out of this paper published a few years ago on these turbidites says that there's a potential for a magnitude 8 subduction zone earthquake sometime occurring in the next, a 40% chance of occurring in the next 50 years, and a magnitude 9 earthquake, a 10% chance of that occurring, which is called the full rupture, 10% chance of that occurring in the next 50 years. And this is how studying these deposits underneath the ocean floor in the series of these different landslides and sediment deposits, and age dating those, core samples is how there's a knowledge of when and how frequently these subduction zones earthquakes occur, and it's about every 300 to 500 years. And these written records going back to the orphan tsunami are dated back to January of 1700. So it's been 321 years since the last subduction zone earthquake here in the Pacific Northwest. So that's kind of how we know about it. And then, but that doesn't mean much. We know it's a hazard, but what is the effect to us? What can we expect when the next one does occur? And this is a study done by Dogami, the State Department of Geologic and Mineral Industries in 2018, which is also a fascinating reference, and has these colorful maps of the Portland metro region that show what the estimated ground motions and ground shaking and damage potential may occur during an earthquake, a subduction zone earthquake. And so in North Tabor here, we can expect a modified Mercalli scale set in, or very strong shaking with moderate damage. So it's not going to be, as catastrophic, oh, we're all wiped out, into the ocean type of event. It's going to be a large earthquake of long duration, but it's something that most of us will survive and have to live through. And so there's different graphs that show, what the ground deformation might be. And we can expect, 4 to 12 inches of potential movement, either lowering or deformation, lateral movement of some of the soils. So that's going to result in disruptions to our daily lives, including road transportation. Here's some good pictures of what types of damages to expect, in your houses, in your workplaces, etc. One thing that I'm guessing Linda will touch on is natural gas fires, being sure you know where your shutoff valve is in your house so you can shut that off if there is a leak so it doesn't result in a fire after an earthquake. And then making sure your belongings inside your house are secured and not susceptible to falling over and creating a mess. And I guess your wine is also being well secured, which will be important. So the consequence estimates are also a part of that study. And we can expect injury and life loss for sure, but it's going to be in the 1% range of the population, tens of thousands of lost lives, which will be devastating. However, 99% of the rest of us are going to need to be able to survive and help our community survive the aftermath of the event and the recovery process, which will take some time. And like I said earlier, the normal, services that we rely on for communication and resources, energy, electricity, transportation will definitely be impacted. And so what can we do about it? Really, our best preparedness is to be able to shelter in place, be 2 weeks ready, 2 weeks of water, 2 weeks of food, 2 weeks of shelter. Really the best way to prepare in my mind is to have a go kit if your house is not habitable or you need to go somewhere else, if you're at your office or something and you need to get back home, having a go kit to get you back to where you need to go. And also be able to shelter in place. Backpacking and camping are really the best things you can do to prepare, having those skills and having that equipment and knowing how to use it. So here's a list, and I can send this presentation so that you can have this list, this checklist of what should be in your kit. I'm guessing Linda will cover a lot of this as well in detail. And then there's also some links in this presentation from Oregon Department of Emergency Management, and some of the links. This presentation by Chris Goldfinger, this top link on YouTube is a 15-minute TED Talk, which is really, really good. So that's what I had to present, and hopefully I did okay on time.
Thank you. Great job. I guess I'll just add, I guess this might be a time if anyone has any specific questions before we move on to Linda. I know I have one, which is there any warning before, any kind of even like a day or two warning before this subduction earthquake, or is it just kind of when it happens?
Oh, that's a good question. Oregon just developed this, rolled out this shake alert system. And so if you make sure you have notifications on your cell phone, you should get about 15 to 60 seconds of warning for a Cascadia type event, or less warning for other types of earthquakes that are closer to Portland. But make sure you sign up for the shake alert and research that.
Is that through USGS?
Yeah, yes, it is.
USGS is a partner, yep.
Okay.
much time did you say? How much warning?
I think the estimate is about 15 to 45 seconds.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So not a
Lots of
lot,
time.
but
Lots of time to do what? I don't know. Grab your go bag and fall down the stairs. I don't know.
Get under a doorway or something else more stable. Quick.
Dive into the bathtub. Okay.
So part of the objective there is it's enough time to stop a surgery and, you know, to bring bring elevators down to the ground floor, and also gives enough time for some of the city's infrastructure to start locking down. And also can help people get to a safer place under a table. If they're in a car, look around and try to find some.
I think I'd be frozen for at least a minute, if not. Where do I go? I don't know. But yeah, good to have a plan. Good to have a plan.
All right, it's all you, Linda.
Okay. Well, thank you, Ross, for the lead in, because that certainly helps us to got to set the stage here. We just get so I've come up with kind of a short agenda to focus the conversation, but I'm really interested in addressing anything that is of interest to you. But this presentation is not going to go into a lot of detail. I think the prior presentation I gave a couple of years ago went through a great, a lot of detail. I think, Patty, I think you were watched that one. But so tonight, though, I'm really kind of interested in sharing some suggestions on how you can get started with making yourself and your families better prepared to deal with a disaster. Because one of the biggest barriers is finding the time to make a plan and then to acquire and organize the resources. So that was a very nice lead in about Cascadia, which of course is where we most often start talking about emergency preparedness. But in fact, in the Portland area, we've had a number of emergency events just within the last couple of years. And certainly last year's wildfires, as well as the Coley fire a couple of years ago, created some extremely hazardous air quality conditions. The ice storm from last winter left people without power for up to a week, and for many people, more than a week. The natural gas explosion in Northwest Portland destroyed buildings and homes, and quite a large number of people had to evacuate. And there was also a very large water main break up in Northeast Portland, flooded a lot of homes, and again, a number of people had to evacuate. So these are all short-term events, nothing on the scale of a Cascadia. And after a few days, right, they're not even in the news cycle. But for people who are at the center of these kind of events, it can take months, before they can get their life back to normal. So those are good things for us to think about. And here's a couple of my tips for how you can get started. And the first is to organize what you have. The second is to learn some of the basics about your water and gas utilities. And the third is to adopt an incremental approach to acquiring new supplies. And there is a reference there to something that Ross already mentioned, the 2 weeks ready. So let me just go through these in a little more detail. Many of us have a lot of supplies in our homes that are going to be very useful during a disaster or an emergency event. So one of the first steps, right, is to try to make sure that those supplies are in a well-protected area. I thought some of the pictures that Ross showed of all of the shelves collapsed and the wine bottles everywhere. Yeah, that certainly is part of what you need to protect against for an earthquake. And it certainly helps you define where you might put supplies. I do not keep many supplies in my garage because I think in an earthquake, it's not likely to continue to stand. But I do have supplies in closets throughout my house. I have some in 32-gallon garbage cans outside. I do have some in my basement, which has been strapped down. My house has been strapped down to the foundation. So you do need to be conscious of where you put your emergency supplies. And in particular, you want to make sure that they are accessible quickly. So a second rule is that you basically don't poach, because when an emergency comes, you want to make sure that the supplies are there. So it is important to separate your emergency cash and go kits from the types of things that you use on some regular basis. And it's also useful to sort of combine similar types of supplies. I mean, I keep my lanterns and batteries and some extra flashlights collected together. I have my first aid supplies that are all collected together. And it's, again, it's a matter of making sure that they are readily available to you. And certainly when you store food, water, and batteries, you do need to make sure that you watch expiration dates. With respect to water, they recommend changing that out every 6 months if you are storing water, for example, in 5-gallon water cubes. Bottled water does not have to be changed out that frequently. But having a use and replace strategy is also an important item. And by the way, having a radio that works off of batteries is another very useful thing. So there are any number of checklists out there. Ross showed one. I'll give you some links to some others. And those are a good place to start, just to go through and inventory what you have in your house right now. So a second area that it takes some time, but costs very little, is to get your legal and financial documents together. So this slide shows a document put out by FEMA called the Emergency Financial First Aid Kit. And again, I've included a link to this. There is a more updated document, I think from 2019 now. But the idea is to collect and organize and store your documents in a place, right, that again can be retrieved, particularly if there's some damage to your home. And also that you can pick up and take with you on very short notice. So a lot of people back documents up to the cloud. Others use a memory stick, but it's a good idea to think about how you can collect these documents and get them stored in a backup location. And these might include identification, such as copies of your driver's license, passports, social security cards, any financial documents related to mortgages, wills, trusts, the medical information might certainly include a list of any prescription medications, any other specific medical needs, and also contact information for some of your medical providers. And then another category would be household contacts, not just people, but it certainly names and numbers of your key utility accounts, for example. So again, this is something that can take a fair amount of time, but it is one of the most essential things for helping people recover quickly and get their life back to normal after an emergency event. So gas shutoff is particularly important for anyone who has natural gas coming into their house. I have included a link to a short video that explains how you actually turn your gas off. So they recommend keep a wrench near your gas meter. I don't find it terribly practical to leave a wrench outside, but it is one of the tools that is essential for keeping some place that you can get to quickly. So it's important that you shut off the gas anytime you smell that very strong natural gas odor. And the second thing to remember, though, is once the gas is off, it stays off. It takes a certified technician to make sure that it's safe to turn your gas back on. So if you don't have a reason to turn your gas off, you probably shouldn't do it. If it's a safety issue, of course you do it, but you could be without gas for quite a while. The other utility that is useful to know about is your water. And it's important to know where your water shutoff is, where the water comes into your house, as well as how you turn it off at the street. And a lot of the older homes have the shutoff valve is pretty far below ground level. So it's useful to figure out how far down it is and what kind of a tool you might need to be able to shut your water off. The reason that you want to shut it off where it comes into the house as well is that in the case of a major earthquake, for example, that gives you a clean supply of water for what's in the pipes and what is in your hot water tank. So it's an important source for you. And again, the video will talk about that as well. So any questions about those before we move on? So in terms of an incremental approach to building your emergency plan, there's a couple of great websites. One of them is called Take 5 to Survive. And this is just a subset of a couple of the projects that they have listed. These are all very focused projects that should take no more than 5 minutes to do. So it becomes a very useful list, for just doing little incremental tasks that over time, get you much farther down the road in terms of having a plan and the resources you need to support that plan. You notice down here, it does indicate that you should have water for 3 days. But again, as Ross noted, the recommendation now is for 2 weeks. So 3 days is a good place to start, but you really need to think about how you can store larger amounts of water for your household and including your pets. And of course, we can go a lot longer without food than we can without water. So this is an important one. The 2 weeks ready website that Ross mentioned is another good one. It contains some very, very short fact sheets, probably 2 pages, with a lot of very focused information about water, power, sheltering in place, what you need to do to take care of pets, and just a long list of resources. And there's another one I'll mention just a little bit later called Do One Thing that is similar. that website again has 2-page fact sheets on a lot of key areas to help you build up an emergency plan. So these are the resources that were posted. This is the FEMA document, the emergency first aid plan. This is about a 4-minute video on financial preparation. This is the utility shutoff video. This is a link to the Take 5 to Survive. And down here at the bottom is the 2 weeks ready from Oregon Office of Emergency Management. Any questions? Okay, I'd like to briefly cover another area that is extremely important. And within the emergency preparedness community, there is an expression that you're not fully prepared until your neighbors are prepared. So I wanted to talk briefly about what's going on over in the Laurelhurst neighborhood. So they are now organizing their blocks into little cohesive groups to assist each other during some kind of an emergency event. There are 7 of these active blocks that have been operating for a couple of years and probably encompassing about 200 homes. And there's an additional 3 that are sort of in the planning stages. These are all organized differently, just according to whatever these little groups of households want. In some cases, parents have given permission for some of their neighbors to be able to pick up their children from school in case the parents are not able to get home. In other cases, it's making arrangements for a neighbor to check in on a household that has an elderly person in it or a person with special needs. Another one of the groups they've planned a site where they would get together after a major event so they could find out who was okay and who they needed to go check on. And they are also doing a little bit of common storage of some supplies. So the whole idea here is just to coordinate with your neighbors to maximize resources and capabilities and to document who has special skills such as medical skills, construction skills, or people who are used to dealing with young children, like teachers, and as well as supplies that you might share, whether it's medical supplies or whether it's a chainsaw. And once again, it's for people to be aware of any neighbors who would require any special assistance. So this is a very effective way, right, to improve the resources available, right, for your neighborhood to recover. And if anyone is interested in thinking about this, we would be happy to we'd be happy to give you some information about planning. And when I refer to we, I am referring to the Portland Neighborhood Emergency Teams. I volunteer for this organization, and it is run under the auspices of the Portland Bureau of Emergency Management. So be happy to help out anyone who is thinking about trying to coordinate with their neighbors. And finally, here is an additional list of some very useful resources. The top one is the Portland Bureau of Emergency Management. They have a number of videos and other useful items. They have something called I think it's a 24-week shopping list to help you, again, incrementally acquire resources for your emergency plan. This is a good website for emergency toilets. Ready.gov is a FEMA site. And of course, the Red Cross also has excellent checklists. They also have a document down here at the bottom called Prepare, and that has very useful information. Prep Oregon is another one. Do One Thing is another of the focused little 2-page fact sheets. And this is a reference to the Dagami study, I believe is probably the one that Ross was talking about, with some very good data about Cascadia. And by the way, I would also concur with Ross's recommendation that watching the YouTube video of Chris Goldfinger is time well spent. He really is an amazing advocate for what we ought to be doing in Oregon. So that's my overview. Are there any questions or any other subjects that would be of interest to you?
Are you going to post those websites in the chat, or are those part of the links that Ross already posted?
They're
Already posted.
They're in the chat already, I think.
They are. Oh, okay.
Yeah, the links are all already in the chat.
Okay.
Keith, could we, I also have them in my meeting minutes, but could we, is there some place we can post them online saying maybe under a tab, it's like, emergency kits, or, if you're looking for information on how to put together an emergency kit, can we have like a link, and then we can just post all of the links that Linda gave us? So if somebody's looking for information in the neighborhood, we can have that up there. I don't know.
Yeah, we can add that as a page on the website.
It might be helpful for folks. They might decide, they see a sign, they go to our website, and then they see it and they're like, oh, this is great. This is all the stuff all in one place, and I don't have to go everybody, looking for everything.
I'm wondering if maybe that might be able to go in the next newsletter too, because that's a really useful set of information, and it might also be good just to show the neighborhoods trying to help, people out.
Sure. Yeah, and we could probably group them into some categories.
Maybe we could, Linda, you want to give us like or maybe tell us which ones are the most important ones, just to kind of like get people kickstarted into this. And then Jules can reference, it's like, if you want more information, go to this link on our website. It has more information for, all this information about emergency management. I mean, mind you, Portland metropolitan area has, in the last, with COVID and everything in the last year and a half, has had to, some of us have had to like deal with this stuff, and with power outages and being locked in our houses for weeks on end with air quality that's worse than China. So anyway, but it's for people who, are moving in. There's still tons of people moving to our city right now, moving into the neighborhood. And anyway, I think we should maybe just do a little highlight on the newsletter. Mind you, I'm not involved with this, so I'm just like delegating out. But anyway.
No, I think it's a good idea. It's I think we just have to kind of ride the fine line of like, doom and gloom versus
no. We're just like, hey, if you're thinking about putting together an emergency kit, here's some great links.
Hey,
if you're thinking about this
camping, maybe also think about being prepared for whatever.
Because everybody's thinking about that right now, getting out of the house, enjoying the great outdoors, and
so it would be great to get those presentations too, somewhere where we can access them, like on the Google Drive or something like that. That would be great. But yeah, so I also volunteer with the Red Cross, and actually right now we're doing kind of home fire preparation right now. There's a big campaign for that right now. Ooh. But then we're also really ramping up for wildfire season. I worked with them to develop kind of an evaluation of their operations for the last wildfire. So maybe there's a way to really kind of tie in kind of just like Cascadia I know it's a great looming concern, but I think it's just like really like breaking it down to that, like, hey, now that people are being a little bit more active, and we're getting all of our outdoor gear, and we're prepping for summer. I think it's just how we spin it, so it's not like.
Mhm. Hey,
Be
Jules,
right-
just,
be-
I mean, this is just another thought. Is there somebody at the Red Cross that we can have somebody come and talk about wildfire preparedness? I mean, when I was working for Pacific Corps, we were thick. It was huge. And
Yeah.
I started updating our emergency lists for every district we supported in January. That's when we started. So,
Yeah.
um,
Unfortunately, it's a little bit different for the urban settings. They're really more focused on more of the rural settings and the rural territories in terms of preparedness.
right.
Red Cross internally right now is just for kind of more urban areas are more focused on sounding alarm, making sure people are
Yeah.
prepared for those home fires. We are working on a program for so really what happened with this last year, it was the level 7 disaster, and Oregon just was not prepared to take on that level of a disaster. So right now we're really focused on just kind of internally operations, making sure like all the parts and pieces are ramping up on top of just that like basic awareness of, hey, don't go making fires, in August. So, so I don't necessarily,
we had red flag warning last week, or this, last week.
Yeah.
So
So
that's scary in April.
I will take let me speak with Ron over a couple with the folks that I work on, see if there's anybody that can do some outreach to the neighborhood associations. I'm on the disaster response team, so I'm not in the
it was just a thought. This is all kind of like part of Linda's emergency kit kind of, and stuff that was so close. I mean, when we had the Eagle Creek fire, or the fire at Multnomah Falls, I mean, that is not that far away. And so it was, I mean, my cousin lives in Salem, was evacuated, and she lives in a high area when the Sandiam Canyon fire was going on. So
my family farm got hit last year.
I want to jump in for a second, and Robert, you had your hand up.
I was just going to mention, and I don't know, it's probably not going to happen this year, but in normal years, there's something called National Night Out, which is in August. I'm sure it didn't happen last year, probably not going to happen this year. But that's an opportunity to form these neighborhood groups that Linda was mentioning, because that's your neighbors come together just a couple of blocks. And so even if there isn't an official sponsored National Night Out, at least I feel comfortable enough, and I will certainly by August, with enough people vaccinated, you do something outside, have a block party, and then collect, we've collected everybody's email addresses just so you know how to, and telephone numbers, just so you know how to call your neighbors. But doing that in a little more organized fashion, and to maybe form the nucleus of some kind of a self-help group in emergency situation would be a good idea. So whether or not there's an official National Night Out, I would suggest that, we try to plan something social outdoors toward the end of the summer and start some of those little groups.
Yeah, that would be cool. I would love that.
I agree.
You could do like a block party or something.
Yeah. I mean, we kind of have this little thing here in the pocket that right around 63rd and Oregon, we've kind of the center there, and kind of like, who's got a chainsaw? Who's a fireman? Who's a doctor?
Just do that same thing and organize it a little bit better.
Yeah.
A little bit more than you've done in the past, but it's already there. You're already doing it.
Right.
Just focus it a little bit this summer.
Great idea, Robert.
Excellent. Were there any other? Oh, sorry. Somebody.
I just want to say thanks, Linda. That was an awesome presentation.
Yes.
Thank you, Linda, for coming again.
My pleasure.
Thank you, Ross, for jumping right in there and telling us about, we're going to have a big one here anytime. On top of COVID and wildfires and everything else. I'm waiting for the locusts to show up next.
Yeah. We had.
Well, they're here. They're just not.
They're here.
They're
yes.
just not here.
They're not here.
The cicadas are coming.
Yes, they are.
Cicadas are over on the East Coast apparently. Soon.
Soon.
Speaking of the things happening potentially in our community, at this last agenda item that was requested to give people, like we usually wrap up at 7:45, so if people do have to head out, you can. But I'll probably stick around for another 15. If people wanted to come, and there was some discussion people wanted about specifically demonstrations outside the police precinct on 44th or 43rd.
So, when did that happen?
47th. It's 47th, right next door to me.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Right next to Lisa.
Yeah, it was not, it was.
Was that last week?
Last Monday, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I was the one that put that on the agenda. And
Yeah, you did,
none of
Patty.
the people that I was thinking about have shown up for our meeting, so we probably don't need to go there. I just wanted to make it in case they did.
Yeah, it was, it seemed kind of out of the blue. I mean, it started at 8:45 and it was like, it's a Monday night, what the hell? And yeah, and it just escalated into a nightmare.
Yeah. It was there, like there was another killing or another murder right, somewhere else in the country. So
Yeah,
Be prepared, it's coming back.
yeah. Well,
Yeah.
they just unboarded the windows of the police station like a month ago, maybe 6 weeks ago. And they were there 2 days ago, boarding it all back up. So yeah.
Well, with the conviction coming down about the killer for George Floyd,
Yeah.
the message that's coming out from everybody is
It couldn't
this
have
is not
gone
enough.
another
This
way
is
because
you know,
if they
it's
would've
not justice yet. We have to keep going. So
if they would have
we'll see
found him innocent, our town would have been destroyed. So it couldn't have gone any other way. It couldn't have. It would not have been tolerated. So
Yeah.
the whole incident was a nightmare and unfortunate and stupid and all the rest of it. But I'm glad at least it's peaceful this evening. It was a good verdict and there does not seem to be any unrest right now, but.
Well, yeah.
Is there any,
and-
sorry, Robert.
I mean, we could just talk about this all evening.
I know.
The
I
fact
just
is
want you guys
that
to know that it's
there are enough people who just want to cause trouble no matter what. And as Stephanie said, they'll say this is not enough. And so there'll always be some who'll just take advantage of a peaceful
I
demonstration.
just wish they wouldn't
Great
do it
property.
next door. It's
Well,
just, I wish they'd move it down. I'm not
just
moving.
get through it.
Oh, yeah.
Well, how about this, though, that our president and vice president made statements about the George Floyd conviction? That's kind of refreshing, isn't it?
I
Yeah.
think
Yeah,
I think
sure.
it's all great. It won't satisfy some people though. So just be prepared to be disappointed in your
So
fellow
is-
man because some people are gonna just wreak havoc no matter what.
So is there anything, as an association, is there anything that we want to, like, any kind of advice or like if the demonstrations do amp up again, do we have a position on those demonstrations? Is there anything that we can offer the community in terms of dealing with those demonstrations? Do we want to is there anything that we want to do? Because it is incredibly disruptive. Like, I mean, I had tear gas in my house last summer. So like,
Sorry, I'm trying to raise my hand. There we go.
I think
So-
the best thing we can do is just to resolve to help each other at the level of the neighborhood association. I mean, we don't have
I think we just need a lot more cocktail parties.
Well, honestly, I've
saying.
never seen anybody take the protest seriously enough to send out any tips like the emergency preparedness. There's no tips
I'll
how to
jump in
deal.
here. I don't want to interrupt too much, but I do want everyone to listen to me. So I'm gonna yell. I do participate in the demonstrations outside the police bureau. I'm not breaking anyone's windows, but I am there standing with a lot of other people. And I think one way that we can support each other, that Robert was bringing up, is there is some teams that are helping hand out respirators to anyone who needs them, like Jules, in your house and a lot of children, a lot of other people's houses. Tear gas was a major issue for pets, for children, for my friend's chickens. They're having people handing out respirators, making sure that everyone has them should the police use tear gas weapons. And I think there's room for a lot of mutual aid and support in our neighborhood. Like Lisa, like you're dealing with a lot of noise and some, I mean, I assume your house has not been targeted, but still like they're up in your zone. And
Well, I look out my kitchen window and I see the SWAT team, you know,
Yeah.
it's like, I see a lot of, it's just a lot. It's just a lot. It's a lot of too much over.
What kind of support could you use? Like what would be helpful to you? Knowing that the protest will most likely continue because it won't be too long till there's another unsubstantiated, you know, there'll be another murder.
Yeah, no, I so appreciate you, CJ, and I so appreciate you asking. Quite honestly, if I could get a little more forewarning that these things are going to happen. I mean, I can kind of tell, but I have stopped watching the news on a continual basis because
Good
it's
idea.
upsetting. And I have to like stay in some kind of Zen zone. So, I'm not always aware of what has happened or what has precipitated the event. So, fortunately my neighbors are addicted to the TV and addicted to all the bad news that's happening. So but still I didn't see them to hear about, what had happened last Sunday with the Dante shooting and what kind of precipitated the Monday night event. So I do have places to go. If I know a little bit ahead of time, I can leave my home and stay at friends and it's all good. I just have to know before they block the streets so I can get the hell out.
Yeah.
That actually goes well with what Linda was explaining in the disaster preparedness. Like sometimes if your neighborhood is not safe for whatever reason, having a backup is a great idea.
Yeah. Usually the protesters are very good about letting people out of the neighborhood or getting back into their home. They're actually very helpful in that respect. So I'm not really worried about getting out, but I would feel better if I didn't have to have barricades moved or, being escorted.
And we had to, and it made it more complicated, but we had to get a lot more careful. Now we have different crews that are on bikes and different vehicles trying to block off the street because we had an issue across the nation, but in Portland too, of people, especially in large trucks, who would come barreling through our crowds, which was very scary. So there's a lot more emphasis on trying to make sure that there's a safe zone, but it's so complicated. And like Robert said, it is an all-night conversation. I would love to talk all night about it. But yeah.
Me too. I think last year for us, one of the things was just trying to really dial into social media to make sure, because there were a lot of marches that were happening on the Greenway here. And, we just wanted to be, supportive of that. But also just kind of aware to make sure that it was coming. Like we kind of had an impromptu speech off of our treehouse right here, which was cool. But on the onset of it really kind of freaked me out because I just didn't know what was going on and stuff like that. So I think it would be cool, if it's not, somewhere soon, if we do kind of pull some different handles together, if people want to monitor the demonstrations or, participate in some family friendly events and stuff like that. I think that would be really neat.
Well, I can certainly, for my small piece, at least I can let the board know when there's going to be something in the neighborhood. There's like 3 or 4 different information sources for when demonstrations are being coordinated. It's usually Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or a combination of WhatsApp and Telegram and Signal chats that all kind of conspire. But usually everybody has a heads up at least 6 hours ahead of time, usually, unless there's like the other day where, there was a killing in the park and then people were immediately trying to respond.
That was in Lentz, right?
That sure was. Yeah.
Just happened to get the tail into that. But you're mentioning all those social media points. I'm not on any of that.
Exactly.
Not on any of that. I'm like, I'm done. Peace out. I don't have time. I have a full-time job and I and I can't
That is
keep
healthy.
asking about all the rest of it. So
Yeah, that's a healthy move. I will let you know, Lisa, if I think there's gonna be a crowd at your house, I'll let you know so you can go to the
thank you.
movies, huh? But
Yeah, I'd appreciate that. That's really sweet.
Sure.
I think it'd be great letting the whole board know it. Honestly, we've never talked about this before. And we have been caught a little bit by surprise, and it's helpful to at least release some of the tension, like when all the airplanes flying over the helicopters constantly. It was very scary and it made it very, of course, hard to sleep.
the helicopter.
But it just seemed like it was never going to stop until finally they pulled some of the feds. So just the local heads up means maybe I tell the other people on my block who are wondering, it just helps spread the information. And maybe on Nextdoor forum too. I don't know how big that circulation is, but that's another platform that people do read.
Yeah. Speaking of, unless things change since I don't know how many hours ago, Ted Wheeler had declared at least like a very short state of emergency, just as like a precautionary measure, if he needs to mobilize whomever.
Oh gosh.
Mostly a proactive in case the verdict was the wrong one.
Yeah.
Thankfully, it was the right one. Speaking for myself and not the board. But yeah, so I don't know if that might still be in effect. But like we mentioned at the very beginning, I haven't been on social media that much today, but I would assume that there will be something going on somewhere, most likely downtown. I don't think that there's anything in our neighborhood going on tonight, but if I find out, I'll let people know.
I don't know if,
CJ, the reason that I brought it up is because we do have quite a few people in our neighborhood that live right on 47th there. And the little restaurant that's there, et cetera. And the other night, my friend who lives one house down, they were taking rocks out of her yard and pitching them and so forth. So that really, she gets very upset about that. Very, very upset. So that's why I brought it up, because I was thinking that she might come and some of her neighbors, because it really is, they're not protect. I mean, anyway.
I might start brainstorming, and I might be able to find someone else too, but at the very least, I can give a little presentation about what the state of how to navigate this kind of thing. I have enough experience now on all the ends of it to at least like share something.
I think I just want to say one thing, that all of us probably, and I don't know for sure, politically or maybe, kind of typical Portlanders, but we have to be careful not to get too specifically political about this. I can imagine a number of people who think that it was the wrong verdict and that they're Blue Lives Matter people, and they might be causing trouble, or having a demonstration or whatever. So from the point of view of the neighborhood association, we just have to think about, there's legitimate protests, whether we agree with it or not, and there's violence, which we disagree with, even if we agree maybe with some of the policies of some of the violence. So I just urge us not to get in the mindset, because most of us sort of seem to be kind of lefty Democrat sort of types. Not everybody in the neighborhood is. And so we want to make sure that what we do in the neighborhood association is the type of stuff that appeals pretty much to everybody. Schools, potholes, crime in general, and most of the stuff that we talk about, emergency preparedness or whatever. So we have a tendency to maybe get a little bit of groupthink here.
Yeah,
And we got to avoid that.
Well, I think the rubric is safety. It's all about public safety, both for protesters and for neighbors. So you don't have to take sides to just want to feel safe.
Like I've given a lot of talks about safety and strategies in a protest, how to keep yourself and others around you safe. But I think there's a lot of room for what to do around a protest. It coalesces around you on what to do. So I think that there's a way to do that that's fairly apolitical. I'll look into that even more.
And that seems like a really useful thing, and especially if
really
it's something
does.
that can be shared. If there are other neighborhoods that have this experience, where the police union station is, maybe we're only one of you know, 5 neighborhoods for whom this is a real issue, because I don't hear anybody else talk about it at the Southeast Uplift, but the protests aren't happening in Woodstock or Brooklyn.
Yeah, or
it's
East Moreland.
It's like how we happen to get 2 freeway on ramps and no parks.
Mhm.
We also got the police station.
Yeah.
No, I think CJ, I think that would be wonderful.
Yeah, I really do. I think,
Yeah.
I'll do it. Maybe
Great, thank
because
you.
because I think in terms of just like lifting up safety, because what I don't want to happen is a further conflict with the demonstration and the protests, and then conflict with just the neighborhood, where I've seen that get kind of, you know, it could get I just don't want it to get ugly. Yeah, I don't want it to get ugly.
Absolutely.
Jules, where are you on the Greenway?
I'm on 53rd and Cooch.
Oh, you're on, okay.
Yep.
I am going to have to bail, folks.
I know, I am too.
Yeah. Well, we are concluded, I believe.
You guys, great meeting.
Thanks to the
Really
presenter.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Linda. Thank you, Ross.
Linda.
Email out the minutes to everybody
I was gonna say,
and
Sarah, you got a
let
lot
me
of
know.
Right.
I do, and it's quite lengthy, so I apologize for that, but I kind of cut and pasted a bunch of stuff into it, so
Good.
it's all documented, and then we can go from there. I just want to mention, I don't know if, especially here in the pocket and how close we are, how close I am to the freeway. If anybody's been reading about the latest trend of street racing in Portland,
So
and
loud.
if you're up late, which we are night owls, so I'm usually up reading 10 o'clock, 11. And if the windows are open, since it's been warm the last week, you will hear street racers on I-84 heading eastbound.
Wow.
They don't head into town because they head out east. And that's been a huge trend right now. So if you're out late driving 84, which I have a couple of nights, coming from, you know, visiting other vaccinated friends, just watch yourself on 84. There are some crazy ass drivers if you're there really late at night.
Broadway and 82nd and put it
Yeah.
on the freeway. What the
Oh
hell?
yeah, you can see the tire marks on the freeway and everything. And
because
we're blocks
our
away from
police.
Sarah. Oh no, it's like you can
they're
tell
getting
the
off the
difference in
surface
the
streets
motors.
because the surface streets are crap. And they've repaved 84 in the last couple of years, and they keep repaving the freeways, and they're much better. I mean, I'm all into hot sports cars. Get that. I love those things. But the ideal pavement for street racing is the freeways right now because our surface streets suck.